Hi, folks. I'm just saying hello. Carrie Cranston here, president of the American Writers Museum. I'm waiting as I'm watching people kind of roll into the space. The number is slowly going up, so there's a lot of you today, so please don't push and shove. There's plenty of space for everybody here today. And of course, I'm kidding. I'm alone in my museum with nobody here, which is very sad. But we are excited because we get to have fun programs online and we get to have a really fun one today. So I'm just going to cover off on a little bit of housekeeping and introduce our very special guests. So on the housekeeping, as you're watching this conversation, if you have a question today that you'd like to ask of either Jennifer Finney Boylan or Kathy Griffin, who are our special guests, use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Click that, submit your question, and one of our staff will reach out, let you know that we want to call on you during the Q&A session. But we're going to open with our authors talking to each other for a little while before we get to Q&A. Other point in our, if you look over in the chat window, you'll see that there's a posting, or there will be a posting for our bookselling partners, Seminary Co-op bookstores. So if you want to pick up a copy of our author's book, that is the best place to do it. They will send it right to you. So we're all glad you're joining us here for this virtual program. We've had a bunch in the last 2 months, and we'll be having a bunch more as current situations continue to force us in this area. So if there was ever a time for warmth and laughter, this is it. Great American writing, as the AWM has defined it, isn't just heavy literary fiction. It's insightful memoir, the incisive criticism and the biting wit that challenges assumptions and boundaries. And our guests today more than fulfill those descriptives. We're here today to hear from Jennifer Finney Boylan, a human rights activist and novelist whose memoir, She's Not There, was the first book by an openly transgender American to become a bestseller. She's the inaugural Anna Quindlen Writer in Residence at Barnard College of Columbia University. Her column, Men and Women, appears in the op-ed page of the New York Times on alternate Wednesdays, and she serves on the board of the trustees of PEN America, a very important organization. Joining Jennifer today to celebrate her new book, Good Boy, A Life in 7 Dogs, is her friend, Kathy Griffin, Emmy and Grammy-winning comedian. In 2013, Kathy was inducted into the Guinness Book of World Records for writing and starring in an unprecedented 23 televised stand-up specials, more than any comedian in history. So I want to welcome both of our special guests to the American Writers Museums. I'll be stepping off the screen, but we'll rejoin during the Q&A period, and I want to thank everybody again for joining us today. So Jennifer and Kathy, welcome to the American Writers Museum.
Well, thanks very much, Carrie.
Buy this book. Buy this book.
Wait, Kathy, I can't see you.
Buy this book.
Wait a minute. Wait, is it? Wait, hang on. Oh, wait, there you wait. Hi. Hi, seriously, I can't see you, Kathy.
This is friendship, my friend.
This is, yeah, I know. Although this is actually like classic Zoom, because I can't actually see you right now, Kathy.
Are you serious? Caleb, help.
Yeah.
I have a young homosexual assistant, and he is capable of, I'm just going to say it, everything.
You want me to put the puppet back on? Oh, there she is. There she is.
You did it. Sorry, certain stereotypes are true. Thank you, Caleb. Of course he figured it out. All right, so tell me all about the book.
Wait, what book are we talking about? Oh, Good Boy. I've heard that's great.
I hear it's fantastic, and only I could meet the authoress.
Okay, wait, stop. Before we do anything else, thanks to the American Writers Museum for having us both. We're so grateful for the work you do in Chicago, standing up for American writers and preserving the legacy of writing in this country. And I personally, Rosanna Dana, I am personally grateful to my, I want to call you my dear friend, although I'm not sure we've ever been in the same room at the same time, Kathy Griffin, who is a legend and who has been a friend of the LGBTQ community forever, and who has, over the last 3.5 miserable years, become kind of a heroine for a lot of us for speaking truth to, we call it speaking truth to stupid.
Yes, because power even is too much of a compliment.
Yeah.
By the way, as a Chicagoan, I also would like to thank the book club or whatever the hell it is. It's fancy.
So wait, Kathy, do you have a dog right now? That's the first question I have.
I have 4 dogs. 2 are 2.5 years old and 2 are 6 months old.
All right. So who's the worst dog you have?
Well, it's okay. I have a dog named Elliot, and as much as I love the lesbian dog rescue community, because God knows they're doing the Lord's work,
It's the community.
you know that those ladies will lie through their teeth and they will tell you anything to get you to take that rescue. And I fall for it every time, but I thought I was getting a pit bull and chihuahua, because I read that if you get them very young, they're actually really compatible. I ended up with clearly like a dachshund mix, maybe a little chihuahua, and not at all a pit bull, but you know. Anyway, so my dog Elliot, he was of course you know, neutered, and we take care of him, and he's this little guy. He's like half
And that
chihuahua.
happened to me. It's the same thing. Okay, never mind.
Remember? Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't make the movie yet, but anyway, and so he is probably the funniest, because he has this little wiggle, like he wants you to pick him up, and when you go to pick him up, even me, he runs away. But if you sit down, he'll jump on your lap. And here's the kicker. I don't know if something went south in the neutering department, but no joke, he still gets semis, full hard-ons. And I even put this on my YouTube. He chews his dick. And I just put it up on YouTube, and I put, my dog chews his dick.
Yeah.
And I don't judge. I'm not going to.
We're not here to judge. No one's here to judge.
No, I'm not going to take any.
There's a lot of men that would do that if they could reach it.
Every man.
Humans.
So,
I mean, you know.
I kind of feel like if you're a dachshund, like if men were dachshunds, you know, they would just take like an elongated midsection and be, you know,
Yeah.
servicing one another maybe.
Yeah.
So I have to admit,
I'm loving the way this conversation is going so far, by the way.
am I being too like heady and cerebral for this crowd?
Well, it's a little bit of a thinky. Wait, so have you always been a dog person, or were you ever a cat person?
Yes, and I'm allergic, but I love cats because I think they're hilarious. I call them comedy cats. Like cats are always just funny. Like, and when I did have a couple cats earlier until I figured out I couldn't really deal with them, but just that feeling of you're in bed and you hear their weird, like jumping around in other rooms, and they're just having the time of their life, like jumping on a lampshade or something like that. So I love all cats, dogs, all animals.
There's a thing in my new book, Good Boy, now available from Celadon Publisher. There's a thing. So we're here to talk about Good Boy. There's a thing in Good Boy, which is a story of my own life and the dogs that I've had. But there is a moment where there's a cat story, I should say, because I have had cats, and I might as well tell you the story, which is that my sister has always had this weird thing about naming our pets, and we had a cat whose name was, and I'll say this correctly, Baboing.
What's the criteria for her name method?
I think completely phonetic. Baboing seemed to evoke the proper feeling for my sister about this cat. So anyway, we had this cat, Baboing, and whenever and one day, actually I believe it was 6th grade, the school bus that I was about to board approached, and at the last second, Baboing shot out and was run over by the school bus.
Oh my goodness!
School bus stopped. I got on the school bus. It drove off. My mother appeared on the scene. I was kind of looking out the back window. I saw my mother pick up the cat. So what happened later that day was my mother goes to the vet, the Berwyn Veterinary Hospital in Berwyn, Pennsylvania, and she's got a cat. And the cat has ceased to be at this point, but she's still. My mother was thorough, and she thought it was still proper to go to the vet, you know, to see if anything could there be a resurrection, perhaps? I don't know, like, could they wire the cat up to like a car battery?
New technology.
Yeah. And, so there's my mother standing with this cat in her arms, and they said, "What's the problem?" And she said, "I think our cat is dead." And the veterinary assistant said, "Well, what's the name of the cat?" And my mother, holding the dead cat in her arms, had to say, "Bye-bye." So there you have it.
Now, did the cat go flying? Because I noticed every time you did it, you did the arms.
Well, if only, and maybe that's the key.
I'm gonna give you fair warning. When I do this story in my act someday live, and I will name check you.
Yeah. Okay.
I might need to embellish a little at the end.
No, that's yours. I'm giving that to you because
because the idea of your mom going baboing and then a cat flinging just with some random like gerbils that have the flu is just funny. I'm sorry.
It is funny and sad, which is of course my favorite place to be. And it's another thing I like. One reason I like to talk about dogs is because on the one hand, if you're talking about dogs, you're talking about love, because that's what we do. That's what dogs and humans do. And the thing I love about, or the thing I was drawn to in writing about dogs in my new book, Good Boy, My Life in 7 Dogs. Yeah, okay, hold up that thing. Yeah, okay. Is the fact that we get to talk about love, which is a thing that we're actually not all that good at talking about, and everyone gets
I'm just curious, why do you think we're not that good? I agree, but why do you think we're not that good at talking about it?
I don't know.
Do you think it's the initial, because, there's familial, maybe parents should say it more or less. And then of course in relationships, it's always a big, when do I say it first? But I'm just thinking there are so many kinds of love. I wonder why we're still struggling with expressing, one of our most prevalent emotions.
Yeah.
And dogs, dogs are like, I love you.
Yeah, well, I think some men in particular, are bad about talking about love. I think it's uncool, it's unmanly, and so that's like 50% of the population there.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and the other thing about dogs is that we're also talking about loss. To have a dog, to love a dog, also means that you're involved in a relationship that's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
And you get to the end of your relationship with your dog, as you always do. And I don't know about you, my philosophy is always to go through a couple weeks of saying, that's it, I'll never have another dog. I'm done. I don't want another dog. I loved Old Yeller, and I'm never having another dog.
Right.
Which is very much, that happens to me all the time. So, and then you open your heart, and in comes this new dog, and you say,
how do you know the time? What is the thing that triggers that gut feeling of, okay, now's the time?
I don't know. I always say I'll never do it, and then something happens. Like I remember, so
you're being burglarized right now. There's a strange character walking across your window.
Oh,
sorry.
Good.
I just, if anybody wants to call 911, just have them on hold.
Wait, what was that?
Jenny, you live in some cabin in Maine that is, I'm assuming it's just a lot of books and maybe possible members of the illiterati come over. I'm assuming it's a random, maybe a handyman. I don't know.
It might be my brother-in-law who's here.
Okay.
Uncle Todd. Hey, but before that, well, actually, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about the fact that we're all in isolation. We're all in quarantine. How have you been doing? You're in LA right now. Where are you?
Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles. I'm not doing great, I'll be honest. I really am. I'm torn between two things. I didn't go to college. I'm very self-conscious about that. And I'm just so endlessly curious about anything and everything. So this might sound crazy, but I've decided to treat COVID-19 almost like an amazing, college education, and everything from, I guess, anthropology or, crisis management, the political thing, of course, but that sort of helps me get through it. So I admit I do immerse myself in COVID because honestly, I'm genuinely interested in what's the next thing, okay, now the antibody thing isn't really, is a little iffy. And now the one test that got okayed only got okayed after the FDA, loosened their regulations and restrictions, because for some reason Americans think regulations are bad and restrictions are bad.
You're taking away my freedom. Griffin, once again, you're taking away my freedom.
I think I also took away your liberty in that conversation.
Well, I hope
you're happy. By the way, it's a slippery slope.
It is indeed a slippery slope. No, have you been tested so far?
Yes. Okay. So what happened was I started getting symptoms, and one night I had what I like to say the GI version. So I couldn't stop vomiting, went to urgent care because I'm thinking I don't want to go to the hospital because I'm sure they're busy with COVID patients, and so I went to urgent care, and then my doctor took one look at me in urgent care and went, "You're going to the ER." I went to the ER. They looked at me. They immediately put me in a COVID isolation room in the ER. And the crazy thing is, they gave me fluids, so that was great. So I stopped vomiting and stuff. They gave me painkillers, which I'm sorry to say they were great. And the thing that was really bizarre, and I wrote a piece about it for the LA Times, and I actually got a lot of backlash because it was like, oh, rich people whining or whatever. But I wanted people to understand, because at that time, it was fascinating to me that there were a team of doctors and nurses in my little COVID, room. And they just kept looking at sort of my, numbers over and over and over. And I'm no joke, I saw their faces like, and finally I said, do you want to test me for COVID? And straight up, they showed me the CDC guidelines. And at that moment, even inside a major hospital ER, that even the ER had a COVID unit, and it was like kind of fancy, they still had those 3 guidelines by the CDC that if you didn't have fever, pretty much couldn't breathe. Remember, they were saying, like, if you're having trouble breathing, stay home until you basically can't. And then I didn't have the kind of cough where stuff was coming up from here. So it was something I've never experienced, but I definitely felt the doctor would have preferred to just get a test. So, they sent me home. They actually recommended, they said, we could send you up to the COVID ward, the official one, but you'll be there 14 days. And then I literally said to all of them, I go, what would you do? Every single one of them said, frankly, I'd go home. And I was like, okay. And so I went home, and then that subsided. And then sure enough, I'm watching the Garcetti Newsom news conference, and they announced 3 days of free testing. And it was quite the adventure. It was right down the street they have them all over Los Angeles, but County of LA has partnered with CORE, C-O-R-E. And so I think they're the ones funding them. But it's great. So I got a test. The line was 3.5 hours. I'm going to throw in a little comedy. I hope I don't offend anyone because we're talking about a serious topic. But it was myself, my husband were in one car because we've made a death pact. I don't know if you've done that, but we've just decided.
I think when you get married, you really kind of need to.
And then my 2 other full-time employees, and they were in separate cars. And during the first day of free testing, the line was 3.5 hours long. And so later, of course, they got it down to like 45 minutes. But anyway, during the line that was winding, we were all texting each other, and the 2 gay guys were cruising the first half. So they're sending me texts like, what about the hot Latinx guy in the Prius? And I'm like, we're here for a COVID test. And so they're talking amongst themselves. And then 2 of them, then the last hour of that experience was them just texting me over and over again about how bad they had to pee. And then I will say, when you go get the test, it was great. They have like the grabber thing, and it's really easy to do. And the first, the first day, they actually stood outside your window, and they have this cool thing where they have laminated big letters, and they tell you what to do. Like, do you have your ID? And you're in your car with your mask. You're like, yes. Did you get an appointment online? Yes. So there's like they got it down. So, what's
the grabber thing? I thought it was like a big, like a Q-tip in your nose.
No, they didn't do the nose one, which I actually assumed it would be. So Lori Garrett was saying that's one issue, is not only do we have to do the obvious things, test, trace, quarantine, but also she was saying we don't even have a uniform test yet. Some people are doing one kind, and some people are doing another kind and stuff like that. But I will say it definitely felt good to get a negative. It wasn't the antibody test. I'll be honest. I'm not like sold on that. Are you?
Well, I'm not sure what the test. I mean, I haven't left the house in 2 months, so I don't know what it's like.
Good for you.
In the rest of the world. I am curious how you would rate the response of our nation's leader thus far in this national crisis.
Okay, well, that lunatic has to be taken away in a straitjacket. So just as he has said in rallies many times, just like the old days, you get a couple of guys that take him to the back and rough him up. I mean, at some point, here's my fantasy. And I just, honestly, I know maybe I'm old timey or thinking about when we had 3 networks, but I really thought, I had faith that the 4 existing remaining presidents would straight up buy an hour of prime time on all the bigs and just, W, the dad, Clinton, Obama, and just really tell it like it is. And, I understand the protocol and their reasons and stuff, but I still feel like the majority of Americans just really aren't getting how serious it is.
Yeah. So I mean, you must find it really hard to do comedy right now. I mean, for one thing, I mean, there's not live shows.
Right.
So are you performing in any way? How are
I'm
you
not, the only thing I'm doing, you know, I want to really take my time because there's this sort of mad rush now to do like COVID charity raising Zooms with like, you know, 40 comics in one time. And I just, you know, having been in trouble for my comedy before and having, you know, been doing this for 40 years professionally, I was like, you know what, I can definitely tell that like 9/11 in a way, like the crash of 2008. I mean, obviously I'm not thought of as a politically correct or particularly soft or anything, but I do want to figure out if I can be at least have an original take on COVID because, and I'm not there yet. Like, there are things that I think will be totally appropriate to laugh at when we do reopen. And by the way, whether that's 6 months, a year, or 2 years.
Do the Aristocrats.
I don't know that bit. I was not in that movie. What's funny is when I saw that movie, you know, I'm not a joke teller. I tell stories. I swear to God, I had never even heard that joke in all my years of comedy. I was like everybody else watching that movie going like, wow, that's really dirty and funny. So there will be a time for dirty and funny again. All right, now let's get back to you and your needs.
Well, let's get back to me. Wait, Kathy, one more. We'll get back to me in 1 second. But on the question of comedy, because it's actually both of our situations. It's the question of how do you make art right now, and writing and comedy are so similar. So I remember after 9/11, there was a lot of talk about it was the death of irony. That no one was ever going to be. Actually, turns out it wasn't the death of irony; it was the death of irony.
Right.
So it's I haven't heard anyone make that point so far. I'm not sure it's because we learned from last time, but I think people are hungry for comedy, and people are hungry for anyone to help produce a narrative that's going to raise our spirits, because this is bad. I'm sorry. Hang on. Can you hear that? Can you hear that?
You know what? Maybe not such a good boy.
My phone's ringing here. I'm just gonna turn it off. Yes, I do have a barking dog. I want to make sure
you know that about how to make fun of like this administration and their handling of it. See, that's the part that right at this second, considering now that, you know, I don't know about you, but I can speak for myself saying I have never dealt with this cult-like experience before with any leader. So it's just different. I mean, one thing that breaks my heart is so many of the fans that I lost are from the South. And what they liked about me was they're like, girl, you tell it like it is. You say the stuff that we're afraid to say. I love you. You're a pisser. That's great. And then it switched to cancel culture. And so now I'm trying to kind of redirect because, I mean, to be honest, since the Trump incident 3 years ago, you know, I've been very open about this. I lost about 80% of my friends. And so it was an interesting exercise now I'm 59, so I guess I was 57, to be like, how do you make friends at this age? So, you know, you and I connected, and honestly, I'll be frank about it. I had taken so much shit from like other comics that didn't support me, or other producers that could have hired me, and companies that I made a lot of money for that were just like, you're dead to me. And so I was like, okay, no one's gonna come save the day. But to be honest, the more I've made friendships with people that are frankly maybe they're a little brighter, maybe they're a little more up on things, maybe they're a little more, you know, emotionally invested in this particular situation. It's fun to kind of try things out. Like I'll do like a sassy comeback with George Conway, who ironically I've become friends with, and SNL even did a skit about it, which I thought was hilarious. So that's like a fun way to be like, I'm still naughty Kathy because I'm gonna mess with Kellyanne Conway's husband, but secretly we're friends. But at the same time, I'm kind of wanting you to then look up Kellyanne Conway and her lies. So that's kind of where I am now. I'm trying to go through like other like you or Molly Jong-Fast and maybe do like a reply or a quote tweet and kind of see how it goes in the real world and then the online world. You know, so the online world will be, you know, probably half robots or negative or whatever. And then you kind of start to hear from the real world.
Well, people should know that if you haven't seen it, there is Kathy and her team made an amazing film. It's called Kathy Griffin, A Hell of a Story. And there it is. And it's about this insane series of events that people probably know, and it started like this.
Yeah.
With, you know, or
yeah. Remember, I didn't even say anything. It was just a photo. The photographer released some back scenes video to TMZ of all places. But yeah, people really, like to this day, like I actually did an interview, I think a few days ago, and it's really their main question. So one of the reasons that I contacted you before is I let's tell our viewers. I said, call Jenny and see if anything is kryptonite. So for example, what I sure, like, how often do you still get asked about your initial transition and your wife and like, and are you okay with it? Do you just deal with it? Or are you like, oh, I have to tell the story again?
It's funny. I don't get asked about it quite so much anymore. I mean, when I first came out as transgender, and my book, She's Not There, was a whole big thing, and I was on Oprah a whole bunch of times. Yeah. I mean, it was really, at that time, so this is 15, maybe more than 15 years ago.
Yeah, and I just want to say for the youngsters, like truly revelatory.
Well, I appreciate that. At the time, it was like I was the only transgender person anyone had ever heard of. Well, and although that's not true, because of course there have been many people doing all kinds of work for decades before I stumbled onto the scene. But you know, I was treated well on Oprah. She was very respectful, and that was new. Since that time, there's been more people in the public eye. There are and I'm not the person who has to carry the weight. Laverne Cox and Janet Mock, to name two, and Chaz Bono, to name three. And wasn't there someone? There was an Olympian. What was the name of that? You remember the person who was?
Oh, right. It was like some guy that had been married a bunch of times and was doing hormones.
Right. And it was married to, well, anyway.
Like 3 times, I think. And lots of kids, almost.
Like a lot of kids.
Another level of children. I'm just saying lots of children. Yeah. It'll come to me. It'll come to me. So, which brings me to my next question. So I'm going to do this if it's possible, in increments of 5 years. So 15 years ago, you're on Oprah. So I call it old world when we were flying and traveling. What was your most prevalent at that time airport question? Like if someone recognized you, what would they tap you and say?
I don't know about troubling, but the one that I would remember, I would always remember.
Good or bad.
What I remember is people who would come up to me and say, are you Jenny Boylan? And I'd say, yeah. Who's asking? And then it would slowly come out that this person wanted to know, was telling me sometimes in coded language that they were transgender too. How could they get help? Where could they find a therapist? How do I do what you did? Because the road seemed, it was like the French underground, that nobody knew how to set out on this journey. So that was the thing I most remember from 15, 20 years ago, is that.
All right, so cut to 5 years later. Was there a different airport question?
What's Oprah really like?
I get that one too.
And then later, and what's Caitlyn Jenner like? Are you still in touch with her?
I was gonna say, that's probably, if we were flying, that may be your current airport question.
Yeah.
Or at least when you were on the show, I mean, I'm sure it had to be your airport question. Well, in addition to help me, or I've learned what you said on I Am Kate, and it's interesting and it's informative, and I heard you and Shandy talking about this. Can you help me talk about it? Did you get that stuff too?
I feel like, I mean, I got a lot of shit for being Caitlyn's friend because she was,
Can I say not as open to hearing and learning certain things?
yeah, I mean,
that were factual.
Yeah, and politically, I mean, she was happily voted for Donald Trump, you know, and
Well, that's because you don't understand the economy. I believe was the quote from that episode.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends who are conservatives, and our understanding is that we can talk, although we try to talk. It's gotten harder and harder over the last 3 or 4 years, but I tried to be a good friend to her, and to be loyal to her. And so we stayed in touch, but we've kind of fallen out of touch in the last. I used to call her like once every month or two, and I think the last time I called her was on Valentine's Day.
Oh, I have to tell you this. Okay, this is super gossipy, and hold on, let me just sell your book. I feel guilty. Here, more book selling. And where is it available? Yell, Caleb.
You can order it.
Louder!
Sorry, you can order it locally through, is it Celadon Books?
Yeah, Celadon. So let me just jump in.
Let's do we want to push
local,
the indie one,
Chicago.
right?
Yeah, so 3 things you can do.
Okay.
And our host, Carrie, is going to come back in just a little bit and tell you how to buy a copy of Good Boy through the American Writers site.
Great.
You can also get it from Amazon, of course, and Barnes & Noble, both of which, of course, are online. But if you want to support your local independent bookseller, go to IndieBound. That's INDIEBOUND, indiebound.com. I think it's .com.
Bound dot whatever is going to be good.
Yeah, and that way you can support your local independent bookseller as well.
Yeah. How do you feel that, like when I wrote my first book, it was all about the New York Times, you know, your ranking on the New York Times bestseller list. And now do you feel like Amazon has almost kind of made that equal in importance? Or do you think it's still like the people that care about money think the Amazon top 10 list is important, but the New York Times will always have that cachet?
The Amazon list is funny because they have the one list that's like every book in the world. You know, you can literally see. Like, I mean, I remember the day.
Which category is this book?
That will be in. It's in a bunch of categories. LGBTQ memoirs, dogs, nonfiction, memoir.
Nice.
The morning of the day I was on Oprah, she's not there. My first memoir was number 150,000 or something, and the evening after I was on Oprah, I was number 11.
I mean, can I just say this, by the way? And, you know, I have made fun of her a lot over the years. I mean, a lot. And she does not care for me. And I have not seen her since I was on the show once. But, like, I run into Gail sometimes and we joke about it. And, like, Gail's daughter is a fan of mine. So I'll take a picture with Gail's daughter and I'll like, do a video that says, like, oh, tell Oprah I said hi. Like, it's just one of those things where she really is, at my age, one of the very few A-listers that just isn't on board. Like, she's just not having it that I'm teasing her because I kind of love her. But I gotta say, like, I really miss that show. And it's interesting that no one filled that void. Now, I was a Donahue girl. And what I loved about Donahue was that, you know, one day it would be a fairly obscure state senator, and the next day it would be a transgender person, and the next day it would be, you know, who should do the dishes, men or women. And we kind of lost all that. So I was going to ask you, when you're doing appearances, do you find it hard to kind of like stay on track of like, hey, I want to talk about the book?
This is the difference between being a writer and being a stand-up comedian or an actor. That for me, the worst situation to be in is live TV or live.
That's my dream.
Well, but because as a writer, I write something and then I look at it and I think, okay, I'll make that better, and I revise it and I revise it and I'll do it like 20 times until it's the way I want it. But I mean, I guess it would be the beauty of stand-up, but for me, it's the terrifying thing about stand-up. You get that line, and either it hits or it doesn't. Or
it doesn't. It doesn't is the important part to always remember.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing, if you're if you're doing stand up, if you really stink up the house, you go home, and then the next night you do another gig.
Oh yeah. I mean, you will have cried all night, and you will have replayed the set in your mind over and over. You've called 5 of your comic friends who are at your same level. And yes, but by 8 o'clock that night, you're still, whether it's an open mic night or you have a 10-minute slot, you're damn right you're going back. Because that's
Right.
the only way you do it.
But if you write a book like Good Boy, for instance, now
I
available
love
in Peloton and Macmillan, if you write a book like this, is like, these words are the way I wanted the words to be, and now it's out in the world, and it's just a very different thing. All
right, hold on. So tell me, I want to pick categories. Like, all right, I wanted to pick 3 things in the book for you to tell me about that were actually fun to write. And I don't care if it was a difficult time or a fun, like, what were you kind of writing, and like, were you doing anything like writing Good Boy and like giggling while you were writing it, or?
Well, there's one dog named Matt the Mutt, who's I think the 3rd book. So just for those of you who are joining us late, by the way, I'm Jenny Boylan. That's Kathy Griffin. We're talking on behalf of the American Writers Museum in Chicago. And we're going to be answering your questions in just about a couple minutes from now. But when I was the book is, see, that's the kind of thing you couldn't do on stage, go blah, 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 blah. If you do stand up, as a writer, I would just take that out. Anyway, so it's a book, there's 7 dogs, and each one of these dogs, I say, it's taught me something a little different about love.
And what did the Mutt teach you?
Well, Matt the Mutt would just come in, and he was just abounding with energy. He would come in, he would knock you down, he would bark at you, he'd lift his leg, he'd pee on my father's briefcase, then he'd run over and he'd hump my grandmother's leg. My grandmother, who's sitting there drinking her vodka, tonic, watching the dog, meanwhile, this dog is just, having forth.
Well, please tell me she didn't put down the tonic.
No, but I remember one time, and I didn't put this line in the book, and I should have. She said, while this was going on, she declared, he's got more spunk than your grandpa.
Tip it. I mean, that's all I can say. I love that because it's so human and it's so real. What do you think about this idea? I mean, I wish everyone could do it, but but they didn't used to do them anymore. But before, one of the Discovery channels, I think it was like TLC or one of those, or Animal Planet, they used to show those programs where prisoners were given dogs to train and how it was like a win-win for everybody. What do you think about the idea that during COVID lockdown, people that typically wouldn't go get a dog or a cat go rescue one or at least foster one?
It is amazing because we're hearing from animal shelters all around the country that people are adopting dogs and cats, but especially dogs, in record numbers. The one here in Maine, our local one in Maine, is almost dogless. And it's kind of amazing to me. I mean, what it says a lot about what dogs mean to us and what dogs bring to us, particularly at a time when what we need is unconditional love. What we need is a soft furry face on our neck. So,
and yet if it was like a human and they were just sort of being oblivious, I would get mad at them. But since you're dealing with COVID and all the info, and my husband has a very, very close friend, 41 years old, no pre-existing conditions. He was in the ICU for 6 months on a ventilator. He was literally the sickest person in the whole hospital. He's in rehab now. He just found out another friend of his in their same sort of college group of guys. They're all around the country. He's got COVID toes, those red toes.
Oh, yeah. And
of course, he doesn't want to go in because we've all been told, like, oh, don't go to the hospital unless you're basically at death's door. So I have to say, for us, the 4 dogs, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, absolutely a game changer. Absolutely. I mean, for the obvious reasons where, it gives you purpose and you feed them and stuff. But I just can't tell you how many times I've just really felt down about this thing. Just like, fearful that people are going to violate things for reasons they don't really need to. you know, I'm now at an age where I go, okay, there's not, I get it. No vaccine is coming in 6 months. So I'm kind of like sick of hearing that. And then the doggies come in and it's really a game changer, you know?
In the book, I say it's not only that dogs love us unconditionally, but it's really we love them unconditionally.
Oh yeah. I have a really corny speech that I give my dogs every night. You want to hear it?
Sure.
Okay. So all 4 dogs are in bed with the husband. Don't judge. And and so every night I whisper in, it's Olivia, Elliot, Maggie, and Mary. And I whisper to all their names and I say, thank you so much for letting me love you. Thank you for letting me. I promise to take care of you forever and ever. And you're the greatest puppers I've ever seen. And it's just this dumb little thing where if it's the last thing I say at night, I feel like, okay, like I didn't go to bed going, I hope I wake up tomorrow.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I think on that happy note, this would be a great moment to bring back Carrie. Hello, Carrie. Are you there? We're hoping that Carrie, our host from the American.
In the meantime, this is available on
The American Writers.
the American Writers Museum, but more importantly, is it buyyourindie.com?
You can.
Indie? Oh,
Carrie,
Carrie.
I'm back. Yes, people can buy it on indiebound.com. If they want to support Seminary Co-op is a local bookstore here in Chicago that we work with a lot. And if they look in the chat, there's a link directly to buy the book in the chat section right now. So I encourage everybody to do that. Thank you both for this fun conversation. We have some questions from the audience that have started to roll in. I'm going to encourage people again, if you want to ask a question, to please submit it in advance through the Q&A feature, and then we'll start reaching out to people. Hang on one second. I was just going to, I think I have somebody here. Molly, would you mind asking your question out loud, Molly?
Okay, hi, I'm actually her child.
Oh, hi, Molly. Wait, who's
I'm Louisa. I'm Louisa. Molly is my mom.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Molly.
Oh,
Sorry, Louisa.
you're Kathy Griffin's daughter.
I mean, I could be.
I'm pregnant at 59.
It's a miracle. It's a
Sorry, Molly's daughter.
It's okay. So my question is, when you first came out, who was one of your like biggest supporters, or even a few of them?
You're asking, this is for me, right?
Yes. Or both of you, I don't care.
Well, you know, because we are here on behalf of the American Writers Museum, it's impossible for me to answer that with anyone other than my dear friend Richard Russo, who would be irritated that I'm name dropping him thusly, but sorry. So Rick and I shared an office at Colby College back in the 90s, and we were just really, really good friends. So we were like guy friends. We're also, I mean, we worked together. Our families are friends. Our wives are friends. And so we really stood by each other. And so when I came out, it was awkward because suddenly I was a very vulnerable person and very easily woundable. And Rick was and is really wickedly funny. And one of the things about being a funny person is that you don't guard yourself. You say the thing, and then if you have to, you apologize for it later.
But you give it a try. You want to give it the college try. You might get a laugh.
Well, and so when I was the very early stages of coming out, Russo, we call each other by our last names. I don't know why, but Russo, suddenly it was awkward because he felt that he had to be a little more guarded with me than he used to. Mm-hmm. And he realized that it's not only because I was trans and vulnerable, it's also that as a woman, suddenly, and this is a difference between me and Kathy maybe, but that I was more hurtable, actually. My feelings could get hurt in a way that they, I used to be more kind of impervious to people saying stuff about me. Well, now if somebody said something that hurt my feelings, I would cry. Mm-hmm. So that was awkward. But so Russo and I went around and around and around. but eventually returned to each other and have essentially returned to a somewhat familiar friendship after all the, you know, what's that line? After changes upon changes, we are more or less the same. Rick wrote the original afterword to She's Not There. He wrote the last chapter, and he wrote it for free. He didn't get a dime off of that book. He wrote it out of the kindness of his heart. So that's one person. That's the person whose name jumps.
And I assume you sort of had to watch him make the transition about how to kind of deal with you at the same time.
Well, yeah, because, you know,
what changes did he make also, like in his own head?
I wanted everyone to be happy for him. I mean, I came out, hello everyone, look, it's your new friend Jenny Boylan. And people who were my friends naturally felt like, well, you know, we kind of liked you before, in fact, and we don't know what this new relationship is going to be like. And it took a long time for people to understand that I could both be really different and also the same. But it turns out to be true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of get that. I mean, I'm like part of the LGBTQ. So like when I first came out to some of my friends, they were like, wait, so what do you like? And everyone started treated. I know, it was so annoying.
Pick a team or else.
I know, seriously. Everyone was like, so who do you like? And I was like, yes. And no one understood it. And then everyone started acting weird. And I was like, can't I just like people?
Right.
So yeah, I get it.
Everyone.
So, Molly, let me ask you this, if I may, Molly. How old are you?
It's Molly.
I'm 14.
Molly's daughter. Okay, so Jenny, will you talk to Molly about how when we were that age, those conversations, at least in my world, they did not happen. Maybe it was because we were Catholic. I mean, I literally had a gay uncle priest, like the whole Irish Catholic story. But what do you think about the fact that people that are 14 years of age are really thinking about these issues and having these conversations in a way that I would argue when I was 14 probably wouldn't be possible? And I don't know about when you were 14.
Yeah, people can live in the world now and come out.
Barely.
I didn't come out until I was 40. And part of this is it never occurred to me that there was a possible world in which I could be out and trans.
Can I just stop you for a really mean-spirited joke that always kills?
Oh my God, please.
Okay, so this is my impression of every time, because you know I'm a lifelong hag. I wear a banner. I don't want to be called a fruit fly. I'm a hag. And so my joke is, as my friends, you know, would come out and they knew it was like comfortable around me, if I would have a friend come out at that age, I would later, when they were in a mood to laugh, I would later do an impression of me on the other line of the phone while they were like barely able to get out the words, because I had known for so long. So my impression is this. Wow, you're kidding. I had no idea. You won't hear it, you know. And so I will say with love, Jenny, I would have absolutely, and I don't even do my nails. I would have just started doing my nails.
Yeah, there's the joke about the couple that goes in to get a divorce and they're like 95 years old and the minister says, why would you get a divorce now? And the husband says, well, we wanted to wait until the children were dead.
Oh my gosh, that's horrible.
You know what's so twisted? The end of that joke could go so many directions. Like it could be, we wanted to make sure the children were grown. We wanted to make sure the children were dead, which is genius. We wanted to make sure the children were, you know, gay, which is awesome. But really, like you could fill that joke out with a lot of things. We want to make sure the children were broke. You know, like it's an open forum.
Molly's daughter, thank you for your question. Let's hear
Thank you, Molly's daughter.
Thank you. Bye.
Be yourself.
We have Ayla Boyd, I believe, would like to ask a question of both, or has two different questions. Ayla, go ahead.
Yes, I have a question for Jennifer. So your 2008 book, I'm looking through you, was about growing up haunted. So I wanted to see, do you think dogs can be haunted?
That's interesting. But is it Ayla or Aaliyah?
Isla.
Isla. Hi, Isla.
Yes.
So that book was about growing up in a house that everyone else said was haunted. And, you know, I experienced a lot of crazy stuff in that house. But most of the ghosts and things that people saw were seen by people other than me. And I remember.
I think dogs are haunted.
I think dogs detect stuff that we don't detect because they have, well, I mean, for one thing, they can smell things like 10 miles away, and they can see into you. They don't have very good vision, but they can see things in you that other human, like when I came down the stairs wearing high heels for the first time, my dog, and I wasn't out to anybody, nobody was home, but the dog
fainted.
The dog was like, yeah, it's about time. Yeah, the dog was painting its pants, It's like, oh, I'm like, hi, Lucy. This was Lucy, who's in the next to last chapter of this book. I said, Lucy, I'm really trans. And Lucy's like, yeah, I know.
Right. Where's my food?
They also have the ability, I think dogs are very spiritual because they just live in a different way than we are. So I don't know if they can be haunted, but I think that I think they see a lot of things and feel a lot of things that are hidden, or at least that are either hidden from human beings, or else the human beings pretend are hidden. Your dog knows. Your dog knows. You cut a fart in a room, the dog knows who did it. You can deny it.
Excuse me, except when the dog farted.
Except which
they have really perfected the look of like, it's not me.
Yeah.
Or they don't notice it. But I would say that I agree that I think at the very least dogs are highly instinctual. Highly. I mean, I'm sure you guys have had times where you go lay on your bed and you're just sad about something, and the dog just kind of comes up and just quietly lays, but makes sure to lean against you. Like, I think that stuff is what makes them magical. And honestly, I think I really wish even more people would be open to adopting dogs or cats during this lockdown, because I'm going to be honest. I don't know, like, are you in lockdown alone?
Me or
Isla?
Isla.
Yes, I am in lockdown alone.
How are you dealing with just the loneliness part?
Well, I'm really an introvert. I absolutely enjoy being alone, so I feel guilty saying this, but I'm loving it.
Oh, okay. Don't feel guilty. It's a pandemic. You can feel a range of emotions, and you're about the 17th person I've heard say that while saying they feel guilty about it.
Sure.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who have said the same thing. In fact, I just did one of these Zooms with, there's a pop singer named Sia. Do you know Sia? I did a thing with Sia the other day, and she was like, I've never been so happy.
I know.
I'm inside, nobody bothers me, and I've got 3 dogs.
Oh, she's got a whole system.
Yeah.
She's all set. But she's also thinking forward. She has a film coming out in September. She was going to start touring then, but she'll put it off. But yeah, she's there's a good example of like, who knew that there'd be someone like Sia who's like, I'm having the time of my life. I can get my head together and blah, blah, blah. And I know it's white privilege. I understand all that. But it's also good that she's also doing the forward thinking of, it will be over sometime. I'm not in the 6 months to 18 months school, but we'll start to figure out systems. One question, can I just ask you smart questions really quick? Because you're like one of the smartest people I know.
Is it me or Isla?
Isla, you can jump in if you have a theory. Do you think that there would ever be a way that, like many other countries have done, that we're sort of put into quadrants of like folks who are asymptomatic for 14 days, and then folks who are, have this much of a viral load, and then obviously there'd be the hospitalized folks, and then, I'm wondering, I hate to say it, I don't see how we get to the next step unless we submit to the freaking app contact tracing, which is us once again giving away our data. But I also don't want to be like a crazy Trumper, because if it's a matter of life and death, I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I'm smart, but I'm not smart about that stuff. My thank you for that. My life right now is pretty simple. I get up, I drink some coffee, I read the New York Times, then I have another cup of coffee, and I do the crossword, and then it's noon.
You do the crossword by yourself?
The Monday and Tuesday and sometimes Wednesday I can do by myself, and later in the week everybody. So I'm in a house here with 5 people, and we all, by the end of the week, not only we've got the 5 of us, but I'm calling friends on the phone. So
okay, good.
Let's take one more question before we wrap this up.
Jane Boken, I believe you had a question. If you're there.
Thank you.
Hi, Jane.
Hi, I had a question for both of you. First of all, for Jennifer, I'm a really old lady and I would like to get a dog, but I'm worried because I don't want to get up at like 6 a.m. I mean, is that just something you start doing with love once you have the dog? Is that like makes you do that? Get up at 6?
Well, it kind of depends. It depends on the dog and when you get the dog. The younger the dog, the easier it's going to be to train.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, I love me a senior dog. To me, like I like 3 years, but even that can be taxing. But you can get a 5-year-old that will probably adhere to your sleep habits very quickly, but also not have all the drama of a puppy and maybe not be overwhelming.
Right.
What do you think, Jenny?
I think it will take, especially if it's a rescue dog, you need to understand that it's going to be many months probably of kind of training the dog and getting the dog acclimated to your lifestyle. So it doesn't mean that you're up at 6 a.m. the rest of your life, but the same thing is true of children.
Yeah, and by the way, you never know
True.
if you're dreading that, and then sure enough, you wake up and the first thing you see in the morning is a smiling dog face. Then you're like, okay, they woke me up early, but this is kind of, and like you said, it's not going to go on forever.
You might, I love being asleep, but being awake with the dog is sometimes better than being asleep.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you.
Sold it.
We have time for one more, Carrie, or do you want to wrap it up?
No, I think we could take one more. Actually, the next person is Fiona, who I know, and who is a writer and has a question, Jennifer, for you about books in this time of day. Go ahead, Fiona.
Hi, thanks. Thank you guys so much for putting this on today, and for giving me the opportunity to sneak in the last question.
You sound like you're from Italy.
Yeah, I know, so exotic. I'm actually Irish, from Dublin.
No.
So, yeah.
No.
My people, your people.
Yeah, all our people. But my question, so I'm an immigration attorney by trade, and I've written a children's book on immigration. And I actually did an event at the American Writers Museum, and it's just launched. And we had planned a lot of like in-person events, pre-coronavirus. I was going to do readings and bookstore events, and obviously they've all been cancelled. So I was wondering if you had any tips for, maybe first-time authors or would-be authors about promoting books when we can't do these type of in-person events.
Well, I do. First off, what's the name of your book, Fiona?
It's called Our American Dream.
Our American Dream. So the first thing we can do is just anybody who's listening, take note of that. It sounds great, doesn't it, Fiona?
Oh, thank you so much.
Our American Dream. And so this kind of gets into another aspect of being an author. And I guess it also overlaps with being a comic. That there's the thing you do, which is an art form that you have, whether it's writing or acting or standing up and being funny. And then, so let's just say you make the thing that you do, or you get the gig, or you publish the book. Then, in the world that we live in now, there is the promotion of all that stuff. And increasingly, that's on your shoulders as well. It used to be, you could be J.D. Salinger and live in a cabin in New Hampshire, and once every 15 years, you could publish a book, and then not publish any books at all, and everyone would be so excited because you were so reclusive. And with a few exceptions, most American artists just can't do that anymore. So unfortunately, the job of being a promoter of your own work does fall to you. And some of the things you do are really obvious and they're obnoxious, like, there's this thing called Twitter. And You should get yourself on Twitter. You should get yourself on Facebook. You should get yourself on Instagram. All those, I mean, those I guess are the big three. There's others.
Are you on those yet, Fiona?
Yeah, so I am under my handle is US Visa Lawyer, because I do a lot of advocacy on behalf of like American immigration lawyers as well and clients. So I am for that, but not like, that's kind of just me in my own professional right, but not for the book. The book has a website, but then I would like tweet out from my own handle.
Yeah, I think you should focus on your own handle. Being Kathy Griffin businesswoman, you don't want to give, no offense here, but you don't want to give those extra eyeballs to the publisher or anyone but yourself. It's your work. And, you know, I've gone through this with television shows where they'd want me to tweet out or do clips on, you know, their website, whether it be, you know, Bravo or something like that. And I'd be like, hey, I need to build like a singular fan base because, you know, I ultimately got canned. So my other question for you, by the way, is the book already out and available for sale anywhere?
Yeah, it is. So it was released in January, and I mean, it is on the likes of Amazon, but it was also available in independent bookstores, which was really important to me to do some of those events. Like in Chicago, I did one in Volumes Book Cafe. I did an event at the American Writers Museum where we got children to come and hear just the stories of like diversity. And so it is, and it's obviously Amazon and all that stuff, but it is available online, and, you know, just
and is it about your experience since the, I call them concentration camps, but I guess we'll say travel ban. Is it about that period?
You know, it features a diverse cast of characters that are all actually based on clients of mine, including, you know, adoption, which is based on my sister-in-law. You know, there is LGBTQ couple, you know, so it's all different immigration, you know, kind of scenarios. That the goal is to show children that not all immigrants are the same, not all stories are the same, that everybody has a dream that is just as valid as the next person. So that was kind of to combat some of this negative rhetoric that we're hearing so often about immigrants. And it was a way to show children, you know, the other side of the true side of immigration.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's just it sounds like a great book, and it is. It is a challenge that you just kind of have to accept. I mean, there are such things as publicists, and they charge like tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, $6,000 to $10,000 a month.
You can't hire those people.
I don't know your financial status, but if you can afford it, go ahead. But I'm just being honest. I still pay mine, and I don't really have any work for them to do, because primarily they take you places. But she's right. If you can hire a publicist, maybe even a local person. I'm a Chicagoan myself, and maybe start with trying to build like a little Chicago fan base. The other thing you can do that is, Jenny has scruples, which I don't have time for, but you can DM people with blue checks that might check DMs if they're open, and I've done this many times. Like, hey, would you throw me a solid and retweet this? So,
oh wow, okay.
I've done that.
And do that to Kathy, and do that to me after today's conversation.
Oh my gosh, thank you guys so much.
Make sure that you make it nice and simple, and there's a link, because people, if you make people even have to click twice, you might lose them. So like,
okay,
to buy.
Okay, thank you guys. I really appreciate your advice and willingness to share your time as well.
Tweet us both the tweet, and then I'll happily retweet it.
Oh
Fiona,
my gosh, thank you.
Where are you from in Ireland?
I'm from Dublin originally. So
I taught at UCC for a couple of years back in.
Oh,
and
yeah, I'm a UCD graduate.
My cousin MJ Boylan has a house in Ballyferriter, and it used to be that we would go there, but now we're all staying at home. But my wife and I have been seriously talking about if everything heads south, November. Ireland is looking better and better to us. So.
I agree. I'll be joining you.
Yeah, you might see me too.
Thank you guys.
True. I think that I heard that if your parents were born in Ireland, that I would have the possibility of being eligible for dual citizenship. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, actually, so it's even more liberal than that. So we call it the granny rule. So if at the time of your birth you had a grandparent that was an Irish citizen, so not even born there, you can get citizenship based on the Irish citizenship of your grandparent. So it actually goes down. It can be kind of continued on down the line. So that's why establishing your Irish citizenship is actually really important, because you can carry it down through generations.
Well, it would be the most amazing thing if a generation of Americans immigrates back to Ireland.
Yeah.
160 years after the Great Hunger.
Yeah, we're gonna need your dress, honey.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Fiona.
Thanks, Fiona. And Jennifer and Kathy, thank you for doing this, for sharing your wit and your conversation with us. And Jennifer, we're excited about your book, and we're excited that people are going to get a chance to read it. And just thank you both so much. And we look forward to, we'll put this out on YouTube for everybody. And for all the folks who were here, we're glad you were here. And go into the chat area and you'll see the link to buy the book directly. So do that for us today. Thank you both. And don't forget the Kathy special is streaming on Amazon Prime right now.
Yes.
All
Thank
right.
you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks both.
I love you, Griffin. I'll see you later.
Love you, bro.
Bye.
Bye.